Good morning, BookTube, YouTube. This is Johnny. Time to make a video. Waking up to a new week. Today is August the 24th, 2025. It is 8:33 in the morning. It's fallish. My wife said when she woke up this morning, she had the house open. It was 60 degrees, and she really likes it when it's cool. She has just left for church, and I am sitting here in my usual area where I sit. I usually sit here because I told you about the lighting. I have lighting now downstairs in the lower level. I showed that video that I had new lighting installed, but for reasons that will be apparent in a minute, this area has, I can put a lot of books around me, so it's more easier to manipulate the books. So today is August the 24th, 2025, and I'm going to show you some books. That's what these videos are about. Books. As you know, I am a bibliophile. I love books, and this is going to be I'll explain this video. Last week my wife got a text from a lady that we know. She is a retired librarian, and her husband, who passed away almost 2 years ago, he was a church organist, but he was also a very I always thought him kind of a professor type. He had very long hair and a ponytail. He had a big beard. He had dark round glasses, and he was very articulate. I always thought he was like a professor or a teacher, but what he was is he was a church organist at an Episcopal church, and he had he led the choir, and he was really into music. He went to Notre Dame University and studied music. He played all kinds of instruments. He played guitar, he played harpsichord, just went on and on. His life was music. And he also was a bookworm like I am. And how I knew about him is that I read his blog for years. He would write a blog, and and once in a while we would run into each other at grocery stores or the farmer's market. And his girls grew up in the high school that our kids went to, and I saw him around town, and once in a while we just socialized. And but he passed away. And so the point is, my wife texted, and when he was sick, and in the process of dying, my wife would go down there and visit and make calls and take them, food, and she became close to Steve's wife, Eileen. Her daughters are grown, and I won't go into all that. But anyway, she got a text from Eileen last week and she showed in the text this set. And she said, "Do you think that Johnny would want them?" And what this is the Hebrew Bible, a translation with a commentary by Robert Alter. She said, "Do you think that Johnny would want this?" And of course I thought, yeah, how I want that. I mean, it's so we arranged a time to go down there. She just lives about 5 minutes from us. So my wife and I, we went down there yesterday. We made an arrangement to go down Saturday morning and to look at she said she had books. And I knew about Steve because I read him for years. And I knew that he bought books, and we had the same kind of literary taste. I knew that, but I didn't know what extent. So we went down there yesterday morning around 10 o'clock. And Eileen was going through the books, and she was going to donate them to the Book Nook. She's a retired librarian here in this area. And she was going to donate them to the Book Nook because she's trying to get rid of stuff in the house. Clear things out. And the house is full of books. And Steve, like I said, he was a bookworm. And same as I am. Used books and going to used book sales, and he bought books, and for years. He was like in his 70s when he passed away. And at one time, years ago, he had a bookstore outside of Detroit. I don't know the whole story of that. So I knew he was a bookworm. And I knew certain things that he had, which I will go into as I make these videos. Because I brought home 8 bags of books. I used these bags. My wife said she went out in the car and she got these. She uses these when she goes grocery shopping or go to the farmer's market. I filled up 8 bags to the top with books and a box full of books. I brought home over 100 books, maybe at least over 100. And she said when we got there, she said, you can have anything you want because I'm just going to donate it. And it was all free. She said, no, you don't have to pay me anything. I just want to donate them to the library to raise, for the Book Nook. The Book Nook needed donations. And she had already been taking books to the Book Nook in paper bags. I wonder that because I haven't shown I told you I had gone to the Book Nook twice the last week and the week before, and I got a lot of books. And now I look back, and probably those were some of the books that she donated, especially the poetry. So I had like, it was like Christmas for me. I got the Hebrew. I showed you this. I got this, and she just gave it to me. It's worth at least $75 if you were to buy it even used. And I was reading it last night because my wife and I now are going through the prophecy of Ezekiel. So I was reading that last night, the introduction to the prophecy of Ezekiel. So yeah, so she said she told me what she wanted to keep, Eileen. She had certain bookcases she wanted to keep, but she showed me they had books all over the house. First floor, second floor. And it was an old house, a small old house, but it had bookshelves everywhere. And she showed me what shelves I could go through and what ones not. And she has set apart books that she wanted to keep. So I went there and I spent 2 hours going through these bookshelves and just taking things. Now what was uncanny is that Steve and I have the same kind of literary taste. The same books that I would have bought used or new, Steve had. And I was really surprised. But then once again, we're all around the same age. And we have the same cultural references as far as writers, modernism. Certain writers, I don't know, we just gravitated. And I was just really surprised. But one thing I knew, I'm not going to show you one thing that is for a future video. One thing I bought, not bought, but was given to me. She said I could have it. I said, can I have this set? Which I will not mention what it is until another video. Keep you on suspense. But I said one thing I knew about is that the poetry. She said, well, I donated poetry, I think already. But as I was going through the shelves, I found the poetry that I was looking for. And this is it. This is Susan Howe's Emily Dickinson. I wanted to, a couple of months ago, I was on YouTube and I came across a video of Susan Howe reading from Emily Dickinson, her book of poetry. And I kept that video in my blog, Crooked Fingers. And so I was really, and I knew that Steve had this because he mentioned it one time in his blog, this book of poetry called Emily Dickinson. And so and she said she thought she got rid of it, but as I was going through all the, Steve would put things alphabetical order, and now you would have a novel with a poetry or psychology or religion, things were all mixed in together. And he also had the other one I wanted, The Birthmark, Unsettling the Wilderness in the American Literary History by Susan Howe. And so I was really excited to get both of these. I knew that Steve had them because he would always mention in his blog what he was reading or what he had. And so I was really excited to find these two books of poetry by Susan Howe. And then the hunt was on. Now I can't show you everything because the video would go on forever. And plus I'm going to make videos over a period of time and show you these books. And maybe I'll have breaks where I'll just talk about what I've been reading. And as far as my diary, I'm on page 694 this morning. And I finished reading the novel Pure by Andrew Miller. Now, if you want me to talk about these novels, sometimes people ask, why don't you do reviews? And my logic is, if you want a review of this, there's on the internet, now, I can give you my judgment. Is it worth reading? But there are reviews of the novels I show online. Wikipedia has a big article on Andrew Miller's novel, Pure. It was kind of controversial when it won the Contra Best Novel Award in 2011. There was a controversy over it, that if it was really merited that literary prize. But I did finish it. My personal judgment is it was a good story. It was a good structure. The characters could have stood out more. There could have been more development of the characters. It was a historical novel, took place before the French Revolution, around the time of Louis XIV there in France. And it could have been more historically detailed, but it was I would read him again. And I found out when I cataloged this year, Andrew Miller is up for a literary prize for his most recent novel, which I can't remember the title of it. But as I noticed that Europia had published his other novels, and I found one in my Europia collection that I didn't have cataloged in my library thing, and I don't know why. But when I was looking at the Europia and Andrew Miller's novels and looking at the covers, I said, I have that novel, and this is the one I have also by Andrew Miller. Now We Shall Be Entirely Free. And it has a blurb by Hilary Mantel. Miller's writing is a source of wonder and delight. Now, I don't know. but I do plan to read this. So if I read something, a novel like this, and I will read another one, that kind of is an indicator that in a certain level, I enjoyed reading it, and the story interested me. It kept my attention, so I do plan to read this one in the future. So once I finished reading Pure, I went back to a novel that I was going to read. I was reading, and then I stopped and I read Pure. I was reading Jonathan Latham's Brooklyn crime novel, and I started reading this again last night. I think this novel is leftovers, things that he had written in the Fortress of Solitude, and other novels that are situated in Brooklyn, New York. This is kind of repetitious. It's not like breaking new ground. He's not developing new characters or stories. There's a lot of repetition from the other novels. So I find it kind of not as satisfying, but I do plan to read it because I just like reading him. I'm going to read it, even though I think I'm a little bit disappointed. And I'm still reading the historical history of London in the 18th century. Among the ladies of the Covent Garden are prostitution, the life of women who were in the sex trade, and also the men behind them who basically were pimps, or the it's about a book called it's mentioned in here, was called the Harris book, the Harris List. The Harris List was a list put out by these pimps, or basically the Harris List was all the women who were prostitutes throughout London, and their names and what their specialty was and where they lived, and description of them, their weight, their height, their background, things like that. I know, but it goes into when you read a historical, this is a history of London in the 18th century. And you can look at 18th century London history from different perspectives. You can look at it politically, you can look at it from literarily, and you can look at it from how the common people lived. I showed you that but a thing I read a year ago called Vagabond, which was about the people who lived on the streets of London, the poor. I should show that to you. But so this is a story. This is history of how people lived, women and men, in the underground, or I don't know what the word is. It's not underground. The people who lived in, I don't know how to explain it. The theaters and the taverns and the coffee houses, and it deals with things like that. So if you're into history of London, that's why I'm kind of basically reading it. And I'm still reading Wild Thing, The Life of Paul Gauguin. I really, by Suze Penninix. Man, I'm mispronouncing her name. I'm really enjoying this. I should read it more, but I read basically these things in the evening until I go to bed. Now, I'm going on 19 minutes. I'm just going to show, I can't show you all the books that I got in these 8 bags. That's something I'm going to do over a period of time. And I'm also listing them in my online diary, Crooked Fingers. What I have to see, what I do is I catalog all these books in library thing, and then I type them into my journal so I can print them off and put them into my paper diary. Instead of writing down every single book by hand in my paper diary, I first list them into my online diary, Crooked Fingers, and then I print that off, and then I put it into my paper diary. I have I'll show you how I do it in maybe the next video. But one thing, I'm just going to show you a couple of books that goes along with what I've been reading. I found this too. When Steve, who's passed away, I found these two old volumes, and when I saw them, I told Eileen I was really excited. And this is what these two volumes are, and I found out it's a 3-volume set, but only 2 volumes were here, which is fine with me, because what they are is the works of Joseph Addison. In 3 volumes, the whole of the Spectator. And this came out in 1837, published in New York. And so Spectator was I don't know, call it a literary journal by Joseph Addison. And this is the other volume. This is, I don't have the 3rd volume, but the Works of Joseph Addison. Now, he was an inspiration to Samuel Johnson. Samuel Johnson, he also wrote essays in The Rambler and The Idler. And as you know, I've been reading for my nonfiction in the afternoons, Samuel Johnson's selected works. And in here are like Rambler number 134, Rambler number 23. Now, all of Samuel Johnson's works are online. You can look at his dictionary, you can look at all the issues of the Rambler, the Idler, all his works are online, but these are selections. So, but he followed in the line of Joseph Addison. So I've always wanted to read, and maybe they're online, the essays in the Spectator by Joseph Addison. And so, like, one here is like Wednesday, May 14th, 1712. So anyway, I was really excited to find this 2 volumes of Joseph Addison's The Spectator, which was really exciting. Now, as far as Samuel Johnson, I'm just going to, in the closing of this video, which is 23 minutes, these are the books I found among Steve's library on Samuel Johnson. And this is one, Dr. Johnson, His Life and Letters, selected and edited by David Littlejohn. So I collect books on Samuel Johnson, and so I was really excited to find this one from my Samuel Johnson collection. And then I have this in a paperback, but I found this among Steve's book collection, his library, Dr. Johnson and Mr. Savage by Richard Holmes. And what this is that Samuel Johnson, he wrote the life of Richard Savage, and this is about their relationship, Samuel Johnson and Richard Savage, who I think was a poet, a man of letters, who lived a very destitute kind of life, but about their relationship. I read this, but now I have a hardback. I also found Samuel Johnson's selected writings. I have stuff. There's different editions of his selected writings, and I just, some have things and not in the others. I haven't looked at this carefully, but this is selected writings, edited with introduction notes by R.T. Davies. So I found this in Steve's library, and I took it. Now, what I've been reading, I also got in the mail last week a biography in Samuel Johnson by David Nokes, A Life. I didn't have this one, and at the Saugatuck Library used book sale, I bought David Nokes' biography on Jane Austen, and then I think I showed his biography on John Gay, who was a playwright and a poet at the same time as I think Joseph Addison. So I've been reading this. I mean, I've read several biographies of Samuel Johnson. I'm just getting into Samuel Johnson. I get into him like once a year. And of course, I've been reading Samuel Johnson and the Life of Reading by Robert D. Murrell Jr. And I've been reading Johnson's Dictionary in the Language of Learning by Robert D. Murrell Jr. So yeah, over a period of time, I still got those Book Nook I got a Book Nook book haul, used book haul, and I have the Saugatuck Library used book haul. And now I have these 8 bags of books. And I got a box of books too from, so I told Eileen I was really blessed. I mean, everything that Steve had was basically what I would have collected over years to myself. And so I was able to add to my collections. I did buy a few things that I was not familiar with. I try to explore and go outside look for different things that look interesting. But most of the things I got free that were going to be donated to the Book Nook, the library used bookstore here in town, I took. And I did give her some money, but not as much. I mean, if I was to buy these books in a used bookstore or a thrift store, I say at least over $100, maybe $200. Yeah, maybe. Well, this one set here, for example, let me see, I can get it. This itself goes for $75 used. This does. So anyway, I just thought I'd share, I don't know what you call this book haul, hitting the gold mine. I mean, I'm just totally blown away how many books I got. Plus I got back issues of the Paris Review. I got a big stack of Paris Review. It just goes on. And I'll show those in the future videos. It's going to be a while to get through all the books. So I hope you had a good reading week, that you have a good new reading week. Thank you for the new subscribers. Do pray that you're all doing well. We're going into the fall season. And thank you for the comments, the new subscribers. And check out the poetry of Susan Howe. I really enjoyed her poetry when I saw her reading it on BookTube, YouTube. And like I said, I was really excited to get Joseph Addison, the Works of Joseph Addison. So I'll sign off. May the Lord bless. And until next time, bye.